A game changer. Jalen Bridges from West Virginia has transferred to Baylor, joined Scott Drew, and become the added piece that makes this team a national championship contender. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, folks, Drake Toll here from Sikkim 365 on Locked On Baylor. Thank you for making Locked On Baylor your first listen every day, joined by a very special guest, the father of Jalen Bridges, the newest Baylor Bear. And Cory, my man, first and foremost, congratulations and welcome to the Baylor family.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Now, I know this has been a whirlwind of a past few weeks for you, the entire family, for Jalen, of course. But in the end, what made Baylor the right fit?
We just really thought, like, once we got the call from them, I basically dove into like offensively roster and stuff like that. And I just thought personally, from the basketball standpoint, that it was a perfect fit for him in that system and stuff. And they think it's a perfect fit because they want to get him back to playing the way he was playing on the Adidas circuit. So they want him to be more than a shooter. So they're going to polish his game and get him ready to play to the best of his ability. So we're just grateful for the opportunity, thankful, and just excited about everything that's about to happen and stuff like that and getting ready for the season. Just everybody here is really excited. So,
Cory, on the flip side of that, for the Baylor folks that don't know anything about Jalen Bridges, who is Jalen Bridges? What is this program getting?
You're getting a kid that athletic, long, wants to win, wants to compete, just a hard worker. You know, he's going to come in, work his butt off. He wants to be good. He wants to get better. So all those things Baylor is getting, I think, will add to what they have. It's just a blessing, you know, because it's Baylor. It's Baylor basketball, man. And it's just really exciting to be a part of Baylor and stuff. But really, you're getting a good kid, man, a hard worker. Doesn't want the spotlight on him. He just wants to come in and help you guys win to the best of his ability. So you're getting a really good kid, and we're just really happy for him.
Cory, for those that are watching on YouTube, they can see the national championship flag in the background. Those that are listening can't, but there it is right there. When you see that emblem and know that Baylor is a national championship caliber program, how much does that mean in Jalen committing to a school that's coming off a championship, less than 2 years ago?
Yeah, it means a lot because he knows he's going to be playing with really good players from top to bottom. So it's just exciting, and he wants to get to work, and he can't wait to get there. So it's just a blessing to be able to play at Baylor, and nothing to take away from West Virginia. It's just a great opportunity. We just think he fits to a T at Baylor.
Cory, I was listening to an interview with Jalen today on 365 Radio, and he mentioned how you had sat down with him and created kind of a list of the schools that if they were to call, these are the places that would be great fits, and that Baylor is one of the schools on that list. What has this recruiting process through the portal looked like in these last few weeks for you and your family?
It's been crazy. You're getting phone calls from basically everybody. So you just got to dissect everything and look at everything. You got to dive into the program. So basically his Final Four, I dove into each program, looked at rosters, looked at who's coming in for recruits, looked at fit, I even watched film on like all four of the schools. So basically, to me, I watch a lot of basketball, and I just thought Baylor gives him the best opportunity to succeed in what he wants to do and to prepare him for what he wants to do. So it was just a no-brainer.
Cory, when you look at guys like Jeremy Sohan, who came to Baylor not being the highest on draft boards or even on draft boards, and now is a top 10, top 15 pick. Kendall Brown's a guy who's also leaving this year. Matthew Meyer up in the air. There are spots open in the starting lineup for someone to come in and make a major impact. Was that in mind when this decision was made?
Yeah, that was like the main thing. That and the skill development and stuff like that, that was like the main thing. So when you look at people's roster, Baylor was the one that had the best opportunity for him to come in and to help right away. So, like, compared to others, like Baylor had one player at his position with the possibility of Matthew coming back. So it's like, go figure, you'll have a lot more opportunity here. You're playing for a good staff, a great staff, and you're playing with good players and stuff. So it's just a no-brainer.
Cory, for a guy that averaged almost 9 points a game this past season and 5 boards, is it the small forward position, a true forward, a 4, a 5? Where is Jalen most comfortable? What kind of game does he bring to this Baylor team?
He can shoot it. The numbers don't say it this past season, but I think this year it will go up and people will see he can shoot it. He can do a lot more than just shoot. For them, it's just a plan for Jalen. Like the guys told me, they want him to be more than just a shooter. So he's going to be able to handle. He's going to be able to come off ball screens and stuff like that, make plays for himself and make plays for other and stuff. And basically he was doing that his final season of AAU before he made his college decision. And we just want to get back to playing that way and just trying to help Baylor as much as we can.
Now, Cory, last couple of questions here for you. When it came to the visit to Waco and actually having Jalen on campus, what was it about meeting the coaching staff in person, being in the facilities, made this the right fit?
Well, coming off a Bama visit, which we really liked, and then you don't know what you're getting on the next visit. And like, we got there, we drove to Waco, and as soon as we get out the car, like a bunch of coaches come out the hotel and stuff to greet us and stuff. That was pretty awesome. And we just really clicked with the coaches, and the coaches just did an awesome job throughout the whole visit. So they knocked it out the park. That was the main thing. And just the area. It's like the school is small, takes you 10, 15 minutes to walk around campus, which helps. And it just allows him to concentrate and lock in and get prepared and mentally prepared for the season. So
Cory, last question for you here. When it comes to adding Jalen Bridges to this roster, is this the piece that makes Baylor even more solidified as a national championship contender?
He's going to add a versatile role to Baylor, which I think can help. He can guard 1 through 4. So if they're switching, he can guard anybody on the perimeter. He's always played against bigger guys in the post. So I know he can do that. And just offensively, he's going to bring a 3D type of player to Baylor that can run the floor, finish off the break, shoot threes off the break, be able to handle within the offense. So I think he brings a great skill set to Baylor that not too many people were able to see. So we're just hoping different system, different results and stuff like that. So I just think he brings a lot to Baylor that people don't really know about and stuff, which is really going to help them. And they can do multiple lineups and stuff like that. And we're just excited, man. I haven't took the smile off my face all day, and we're just happy and excited and happy for him because he's happy with the decision and stuff like that. So,
well, Cory, I'll answer the question for you and say yes, abso-freaking-lutely. This addition to the team makes Baylor a national championship contender and adds a piece where Baylor needed size and depth with their size, and this certainly does that, adding another player to the starting five who can be an impact from day one. So congratulations to you, to your family, to Jalen, and again, welcome to the Baylor family. We are so glad to have you.
Thank you. Appreciate this, and thank you for accepting us into the Baylor Nation. We're excited. Hopefully we can win a lot of games. Hopefully we get back to the tournament. Hopefully go really deep in the tournament. So that's the goal. And the goal is to win. And let's have some fun.
Let's do it. If you haven't thrown a Sikkim Bears yet, I'm sure you will over the many Sikkim Bears over the course of your time.
I was able to throw it up on the visit. They took a picture of it. So hopefully they'll send it soon and I'll post it, but was able to do that as a family. So it was great.
That's great. Well, Cory, thanks again for coming on and a pleasure to have you.
No problem. Thank you. And we'll talk soon.
Again, that was Cory Bridges, the father of Jalen Bridges, Baylor's newest commit. Coming up next, John Garcia Jr. joins the show. He's the head of recruiting at Sports Illustrated, talking Kaian Roberts-Day, what he brings to the Baylor program, Armani Winfield, his instant impact. But first, I got to tell you about Athletic Greens. AG1 is something that I've picked up since I started with Locked On about a month ago. AG1 has a product that I've used daily now because all you got to do is put one little scoop into your water and you're immediately getting 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. Adaptogens is not a word you thought you'd get today, but you did. AG1 is lifestyle friendly. So if you are vegan, if you're dairy-free, if you're gluten-free, AG1 keto, it is still for you. Tons of people take some kind of multivitamin, but it's important to choose one that is high quality and agrees with your body so it can be, you can intake it well. And it costs less than $3 a day. So you're investing in your health and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. So right now, reclaim your health, arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, one scoop in a cup of water every day. Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you got to do is visit athleticgreens.com/college, athleticgreens.com/college. Take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, folks, we now welcome John Garcia Jr. to the show, the head of recruiting. I'm going to call you the head of recruiting at Sports Illustrated, right? Like if Sports Illustrated had a recruiting department, you would be the guy that's number one, following all things college football. And thank you again for making Locked On Baylor your first listen every day, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. John, I am remiss that I can't throw you a Jalen Bridges question because, of course, that's what's burning in the minds of every Baylor fan right now. It's almost taking away from the spring game, but of course, football is king in Texas, so everyone is still dialed into what Baylor's going to bring in the green and gold game on Saturday. But when it comes to the young guys, John, that's where a lot of fans are questioning how well Baylor's freshmen can develop in year number one in positions that need a helping hand. And I want to start with a guy in Armani Winfield, who Baylor fans have been talking about nonstop now as he's already making waves. What is your, again, cast a wide net, see what we catch, broad analysis of Armani Winfield?
Big fan of Armani Winfield's game. Have seen him a ton, both in person and on tape over the years. Of course, he was once committed to Texas, which probably adds a little bit of icing on the cake for Baylor fans. But I think with Armani, you get a bit of a complete package. And I think that is just what the doctor ordered for Baylor. A ton of transition in that wide receiver room, as we talked about off air. Everybody focuses on Tyquan Thornton moving on, but he wasn't alone in moving on. So it'll be a new look pass catcher unit almost as a whole for Baylor. And when you talk about a kid who can come in and have an impact, it starts with the word floor. It's not as sexy as ceiling. It's not as appealing as, hey, in 3 years, this will be a first-round draft pick, all that fun stuff we do in our business. On SI, we really value the floor. I love polished players who are just ready to go day one. So is Winfield a track star? Is he a guy that is going to develop into a top 10 pick in the draft? No disrespect to him, probably not. But can he come in and be ready to contribute day one because he is big, physical, polished, consistent, productive, dating back to his freshman and sophomore year in high school? Yes, he absolutely can. So I think that's where the conversation begins with him. 6'2", 200 pounds or so. And like I said, there's a lot of polish in his game. So productive as well, 1,000 yards last year. What I really like about Armani is he's comfortable. He's like not affected. He's not panicked by the craziness of the high school game. So when the football's in the air, there's no visible change in his demeanor. When he's going over the middle and is about to absorb a hit, there's no short arming. He is a physical wide receiver who is ready for that moment. He's going to be that reliable option on 3rd and 6 one day. And I always talk about, look, you want a guy who can take the top off of a defense. You probably want a slot type who can break down a sub defender or a safety, but you also want that reliable 3rd and 6, go over the middle and take a hit from a linebacker or a safety. And I think Armani Winfield can be closer to that in distinguishing his skill set between the three. But he has run track. He does have some 3rd level ability, and he's relatively technical. So I do think that where he might not have that mind-melting speed, he can use some of that polish that he has to create more separation down the field. And then you throw in how comfortable he is when the football is in the air and his size, and all of a sudden you can create chunk plays, which has really become kind of that next important thing when we break down film. And when you look at winning and losing, turnover battle is always number one. I think chunk plays by one metric is becoming like the second most telling stat as to whether or not you win or lose a football game. So if you've got a wide receiver, a tight end, a quarterback who can contribute to chunk plays, I do think that you're heading in the right direction. And I do think Armani Winfield can be one of those guys.
John, in spring ball, Armani Winfield's name has been thrown out as one of the wide receivers who has really just shown a lot of flashes of early success for Baylor, a guy who didn't need a lot of development coming in. And one of the questions, I hate this question. When people ask me this, it is frustrating. And I'm going to ask you, if you could really just kind of pull out a vague comparison to Armani Winfield in what Baylor fans can kind of get a metric for what they're getting from a freshman, meaning they haven't seen, most Baylor fans haven't seen much of him. Who would you kind of go with in terms of maybe he doesn't have the ceiling of this player, but you'd vaguely compare him to?
That's a really good question. I haven't comped
No, it's
Armani.
not, John. No, it's not. It's a terrible question, and I hate that I gave it to you.
Look, I think he can be a reliable option. I'm going to date myself a little bit, but when the Giants made their run in the late 90s into the 2000s, they had a receiver named Armani Toomer who was just a relatively consistent wide receiver who would have occasionally grabbed you a chunk play, but on 3rd and 6, he was the guy. You knew the ball was coming his way. If he had to shield off a defender or go up and get it and expose his ribs, he would go up and get it. So Armani Toomer came to mind for Armani Winfield right off the bat, but I do think he's got some really classic possession traits. So I go like maybe Mushin Muhammad from the Carolina Panthers during their Super Bowl run in the early 2000s. Just a big, physical, polished wide receiver. But again, he's got that 3rd level ability in his back pocket because of the polish, the size, and the speed and how it all comes together. So I just think if you can be that as a true freshman, I think your ceiling will eventually be met. But the floor here is very, very strong, and that's why I'm a big fan of his.
So, John, last summer, Armani was at 6'2", 185 pounds. So he's already put on 15 pounds, continued to get bigger, and you rated him as your number 17 wide receiver prospect in your top 25. What I want to ask you that kind of gets away from Armani and really is just the metric in general, what separates wide receivers 1 through 5 from number 17? What separates number 17 from wide receiver number 25?
That's a really good question. I think every class is different, and I think what we got a lot of in last year's class was a whole lot of different body types. This year it's very streamlined, right? Everyone's 6 foot and above, can go up and get it, can challenge that 3rd level. Last year, we had a lot of two-way guys. Our number one wide receiver was Travis Hunter, who's a 5'10 and a half, skinny, explosive type of wide receiver. And then we had 6'4 and 6'5 receivers that were just so hulking and so notable for their ability to shield off defenders, like Tyrone McMillan, who signed with Arizona out of California, borderline tight end. I mean, that's how big and physical some of these receivers were. And then you had guys like Armani Winfield that were kind of in the middle, right? Just kind of a conventional body type, very high floor, polished, consistent, reliable. So I do think that by way of body type and maybe a lack of elite speed, he fell by the wayside to a degree, but it was a good receiver class. If you're top 20 in the country at any position, you're pretty darn good and pretty darn special. And like I said, at SI, we really value the floor. We want guys who are going to come in and be great college players. I love the NFL draft. I'll be nerding out next week, but I really focus on Saturdays. I really have more passion about Saturdays and about who can help my team or hurt my rivals' team's ability to win a game on Saturday. So we project for the college game more so than the NFL game. So I think that's a little bit more why we're pushing the floor a little bit more than the ceiling. But some guys are combinations of both. But with Armani, love the floor, but we do think there's room for him to improve, particularly in his build, which he's already done, and in the explosiveness department, which sometimes comes with that lower body development.
John, I love the analysis of Armani Winfield and the fact that he can make an instant impact on Baylor's offense that has a pretty thin wide receiver room as it sits now. And fret not for those that are watching or listening at home. John is not done. But first, I have to tell you about betonline.net, your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. So betonline.net, the NBA playoffs are going on right now. There was a game between the Suns and the Pelicans the other night. That's like the most I know about the NBA playoffs. But maybe you're an expert, and maybe you want to put, some fiscally responsible monetary units onto a game. That's probably the nicest way I can put it. Legally, of course. BetOnline.net is your place to do that. BetOnline has esports. They have live Vegas casino. They have live betting, like in the middle of a game, live over-unders, things like that. Head to the website today. Check out BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net, where the game starts. You can find all of your sports betting needs. Get your sports betting fix at BetOnline.net. John, jumping into really the second freshman that has really been someone that I've looked forward to seeing in a Baylor jersey, and he was a guy who, coming out of high school, was highly rated again out of Festus, Missouri, and that is Kaian Roberts-Day, who has an unbelievable backstory. I mean, his twin brother passed away after a football practice. Like, that is so life-changing in every way, so maturing in itself. So you're getting a guy who just brings that kind of mental toughness to the table. But you're also getting an athlete whose first love is basketball, can jump out of the gym. I'm going to cast that same damn wide net that I already did. Kaian Roberts-Day, you hear the name. What do you think?
I think, where in the world is he going to settle positionally? I know Baylor listed him as a tight end right out of the gate, but you go back to when we interacted with him, we're watching him play running back. He's camping at outside linebacker, and it's total anomaly, right? 6'3", 6'4", like, what is it, 240?
Yeah.
Running the ball. It's like Derrick Henry. I mean, he is such a unique story, as you mentioned, first and foremost, and a kid who has had to force a little bit of maturity, understandably so, but Baylor's going to benefit from that. So I do think a kid like this is built to play multiple positions in high school and then start to focus on one at the collegiate level. And the traits of him as a potential tight end are through the roof. I haven't been as tapped in with his spring exploits at Baylor, but when you're 6'4", 240, and you're just used to playing running back and playing on defense with that basketball background, you just naturally, tight end just kind of like rolls off of your tongue. So I do hope that he could find a home there, and I could see why Baylor is starting at that point. He is absolutely electric with the football in his hands, incredibly instinctive with the ball in his hands as well. I mean, watch his running back tape. He's not outrunning a bunch of guys, but he's got some subtle moves and plenty of power and offhand ability to get off of tacklers. And I think when you talk about the evolution of the tight end position, it's not guys that are just going to the sticks, turning around and being bigger than the defensive backs, trying to corral them to catch a 7-yard hitch and be done with the play. It's guys that are splitting out or playing H-back or playing fullback or going in motion, and they're playing in space with that ability to run after the catch that much more important. And I think that's where Kaian is probably above every other tight end in the country going into this freshman season relative to the rest of his true freshman peers at the high school and now collegiate level, because he was a running back. And there's just no other tight end in this class who played running back on a relatively consistent basis. In the class prior, you know who the number one tight end on SI was? His name was Brock Bowers. Do you know what he played in high school? Running back. So if you have after the catch ability with the size and speed that Kaian has, it can enable you to change your entire offense, just as the defending national champs, how they were able to do that so successfully, to where now they've got like the best tight end room in college football, and they run off wide receivers into the portal. That's what a good tight end with athleticism after the catch can do. And I'm not saying he's going to have the Brock Bowers freshman season, but he has some of those same traits, and he's bigger than Brock is right now. So there's so much fascination around his game, and I think that's why he was such a coveted recruit. So I think just the recruiting win for Baylor was a really big deal. Now you get to kind of mold him into what you want him to be on the football field, which is obviously important. And I think tight end, my goodness, it's about as good a place to start as any.
John, I love that I didn't have to ask you the comparison question because you just threw out Derrick Henry. Maybe not in direct comparison to Kaian Roberts-Day, but I'm going to hold you to that. And if he's not a Derrick Henry type, I'm probably going to be pretty upset, as are the listeners.
Good.
But I want to get away then from Kaian in general too, and just give you more of from a freshman perspective when it comes to these younger guys who are stepping up into a spring game. I know Armani is one of the guys who's really been, again, kind of tabbed as the dude to look out for from the freshman class in the spring game. What are the keys that you see from a freshman in a spring game that let you know, okay, this guy is prized for either immediate or even future success?
Well, it's usually two things. One, there's going to be a flash play, right? We've already seen, about 100 spring games go down this year, and the freshmen that have made an impact have flashed in a big way, whether it's a receiver catching a ball down the football field, or making a guy miss on a play. You're like, wait, who's that? You got to Google that number. Oh, it's this kid who was really highly thought of coming out of high school. So you got to flash. And then I think you have to show some physical improvement, whether it's in Kaian's case, focusing on one position, or in Armani's case, putting on weight. I think physically you have to kind of almost look and feel the part, right? Because if it's a busted coverage and you score an 80-yard touchdown, it's great, but it's not really indicative of your physical ability the same way it is if you go up and over a guy and then outrun the next guy who had an angle on you. It's a bit of a different 80-yard touchdown. So I think if you flash physically as well as, tangibly with a big play of some sort, I do think those are the two kind of key factors to say, hey, like, we need to really keep an eye on this freshman, because if he's doing that in April, what is he going to do in September?
John, last question for you. And I think I asked the same thing last week, but it is continued to burn in my brain. You answered it really well too, but it's continued to burn in my brain. How is the transfer portal, its prevalence this offseason as it continues to grow, killing the potential for freshmen to step into a role day one?
Well, you mentioned it earlier, right? So Baylor had a weakness at wide receiver. It happened to sign a good receiver group out of high school led by Winfield, but in most cases, the transfer portal is going to be the first, at least, attempt to close that gap. And maybe Baylor does going forward, right? Because we know after this weekend, the bulk of all spring games are done, and the portal is going to it's going to flood one more time, right? It's going to be like the last flood before the season begins. So maybe they do go to the portal at some point. But, yeah, that's the plan for a lot of schools. It's like, we still need this, and let's go pull from a player with college experience where we can see college tape against college competition, particularly if he's an older player with experience for multiple years, maybe a grad transfer, something like that. It's just natural to go there first. It's like the NFL. If there's a free agent that can do X, Y, and Z versus the NFL draft, you're probably going to go with that free agent if it's such a pressing need. And I think college is beginning to reflect that in a more consistent way and a quicker way. Because now you don't have to negotiate and sign the kid. You just got to recruit him. And maybe he's only got a couple schools recruiting him, and your pitch is best. He takes a visit and he's done. Some of these portal situations happen in 2 or 3 days. So I do think there's going to be another run of kids entering the portal and by proxy, a run of schools plucking kids out of the portal to get ready for the 2022 season. So it is a huge deal in terms of stunting development, But look, these coaches are on a shorter leash than they've ever been. I mean, some coaches are getting fired after 2 years. The hot seat is hot immediately for basically any coach that doesn't have a great season. So you understand why they value experience more than potential, at least initially.
John, I want to thank you so much again for joining. And once again, where can folks who are just now hearing you for the first time, if they didn't listen last week, find your stuff?
Yeah, real simple. SI.com/college, or if you're on social media, at SI All-American on all platforms. And my handle's my name, John Garcia. Throw in an _ JR, and you can bug me there. Let's talk.
I love it. John, thanks so much for coming on, as always.
Always fun, Drake. Have a good one.
You too. Folks, before you get out of here, I got to tell you about tomorrow's show. Terrell Bernard. Heard of the name? All-star linebacker for Baylor University, and a guy who's got a lot of potential coming up in next year's draft. Say next year. It's like in a couple of weeks. Draft prospect Terrell Bernard joins the show. He's going to talk about the draft process and also Baylor's spring game on Saturday, what he's looking forward to going into that one. So don't want to miss that. Make your second listen, since your first listen's already locked on Baylor, make your second listen locked on NFL Draft. Really great show with Ryan Tracy, former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker. They bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects, NFL front offices, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Come back tomorrow. Terrell Bernard joins the show. This has been, as it always is and always will be, Locked on Baylor.